By the time my daughter-in-law begged me to save her home, I had already lost something harder to replace than a townhouse: my son's trust. Cardboard scraped across the tile as Andrew pushed another box against the hallway wall. Packing tape snapped somewhere upstairs. The air smelled of dust, coffee left too long on a warming plate, and Lauren's sharp citrus perfume. A thick packet of papers lay on the kitchen counter beside a ring of keys. Lauren stood between me and those papers. "Please, Michael," she said, "tell Denise you agreed." Her voice was low enough that Andrew couldn't hear from the stairs. I ran my thumb along the rough edge of the packet. At 64, after more than 4 decades working as a commercial electrician, I'd learned not to touch anything until I knew where the current was coming from. Agreed to what? Lauren's mouth tightened. You know what? I looked toward the stairs. Andrew had stopped moving. That silence told me he was listening. Lauren slid a sheet toward me. "One statement. That's all. Tell her you knew what we were doing." 6 months earlier, she had been sitting across from me at a dinner table, smiling as if I were the problem she had finally figured out how to solve. It was early February. Andrew had invited me over for dinner, and I'd assumed it was his way of keeping me from eating another frozen meal alone. Diane had been gone a little over a year. 42 years of marriage leaves habits behind. I still reached for 2 coffee mugs some mornings. Lauren had made roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. The refrigerator hummed behind me. My fork clicked against the plate when Lauren brought up a doctor's appointment I'd missed. "You forgot Tuesday," she said. "It got moved." Lauren tilted her head. "Did it?" Andrew kept cutting his chicken. I looked at him. "Your wife seems to know my calendar better than I do." "She's just worried, Dad." That word had been showing up a lot. Worried. Lauren took a sip of wine. "You forgot your wallet at lunch last month, too." I went back and got it. "And that bill you paid twice." Andrew stopped chewing. I set down my fork. "Are we having dinner, or are you keeping score?" Lauren gave a small shrug. "Nobody's keeping score." Could have fooled me. She leaned back. "You don't work anymore. Andrew handles most of the things you used to help with. I've been handling appointments. Bills seem to confuse you lately." "Lauren," Andrew said. "What?" She looked at him, then back at me. "We're family. We should be able to say things." I could hear the ceiling fan ticking above us. Lauren folded her napkin beside her plate. "How does it feel being useless?" Andrew's fork slipped from his fingers and struck the plate. A hard little crack. Nobody moved. I put my glass down carefully. "How does it feel knowing I won't pay your bills anymore?" The smile left Lauren's mouth, but not her eyes. Andrew stared at me. "Dad, I mean it." Lauren gave a quiet laugh. "You're upset." "No, I'm finished." That got her attention. For months, I'd covered shortages while Andrew was between jobs. Part of their rent, utility bills when things got tight, health insurance premiums for my grandchildren when Andrew's coverage changed. Some months it was $2,500. A bad month could run closer to $3,500. I'd never called it charity. Andrew was my son. But something changed at that table. Lauren hadn't asked whether I needed help. She had assembled a case and presented it between the mashed potatoes and dessert. The next morning, I stopped the voluntary payments. I didn't empty our joint emergency account because Andrew was a co-owner, and I wasn't going to play games with money that way. Instead, I told him I wouldn't add another dollar until I understood every large withdrawal. Andrew answered with a long pause. Then he said, "Okay. Not thank you. Not I understand. Just okay." 2 days later, my sister Helen called. She didn't say hello first. "Mike, what are you doing with your money?" I moved the phone away from my ear and stared at it before answering. "My money?" Lauren called. Of course she had. Helen lowered her voice. "She said you suddenly cut Andrew off." "I stopped paying bills that belonged to 2 adults in their 40s. That isn't how she put it." I leaned against the kitchen counter. Diane's old ceramic sugar bowl was still beside the coffee maker. One corner of the lid had been chipped for 15 years. How did she put it? Helen hesitated. "She said you've been making impulsive financial decisions since Diane died." I looked at that chipped lid. And you believed her? I'm asking you. No, Helen. You're checking on me. Another pause. Then my sister said, maybe somebody should. After we hung up, I stood there with the phone in my hand. Lauren had done something clever. At dinner, she'd insulted me. Outside that room, she was concerned about me. Those were two very different stories. The certified envelope arrived 4 days later. The mail carrier's scanner chirped when I signed for it. The envelope was heavier than ordinary correspondence, stiff against my palm, with the name of a law office printed in the return corner. I opened it at the kitchen table. My name appeared again and again. Michael Grant. Estate. Financial affairs. Petition. Conservatorship. I read the first pages twice before calling Caroline Shaw, an attorney Diane and I had used for estate planning matters. Caroline didn't offer comfort. She offered instructions. Don't call Lauren, she said. I wasn't planning to. Don't call Andrew either. That one took longer. What exactly are they asking for? They're asking the probate court to consider whether you need a conservator for financial matters. Filing a petition doesn't mean anyone has taken your rights away. You can oppose it, and we're going to examine every claim. Paper whispered under my fingers as I turned the page. Missed medical appointment. Duplicate bill payment. Forgotten wallet. Late-night visit to Andrew's townhouse. Small things. Real things. Mostly. That was what bothered me. I had forgotten my wallet. I had paid something twice. Sleep had been unreliable since Diane died. And there were nights when 2 in the morning felt no different from noon. But the way those incidents sat together on paper made them look different. Deliberate. I read further. One paragraph claimed Andrew had become increasingly concerned that I could no longer distinguish ordinary household expenses from suspicious transactions. I stopped. What does that mean? Caroline asked me to read the sentence aloud. I did. Have you accused Andrew of taking money? No. Lauren? No. Anyone? My eyes went to the folder where I kept bank statements. I asked Andrew about the emergency account. Caroline's voice changed slightly. More precise. When? December. The balance was lower than I expected. How much lower? I don't know yet. Find out. But don't move money around tonight, and don't confront anyone. We need records before conclusions. After the call, I kept reading. Near the back was a declaration. Andrew Grant. My son. His signature sat at the bottom in blue ink. I knew that signature. I'd watched him scribble it on school permission slips when his own kids were younger. Refinance papers, birthday cards, every rushed document he wanted finished before dinner. Above it, Andrew stated that he had concerns about my ability to manage financial decisions without assistance. The refrigerator compressor kicked on. I read the signature date. Then I checked the date of our dinner. Once. Twice. The declaration had been signed before Lauren asked me how it felt to be useless. The paperwork had already been moving. I picked up my phone. Caroline had told me not to call Andrew. I stared at his name anyway, then pressed it. He answered on the 4th ring. Dad, when did you sign it? Nothing. Not even a question about what I meant. That was answer enough. I heard Andrew breathe into the phone. Dad, it wasn't supposed to go this far. Andrew's words stayed in my ear after the call ended. I had asked him when he signed the declaration. He had answered a different question. That mattered. My thumb hovered over his name on the screen, ready to call back, when Caroline's earlier instruction came to me. Don't confront anyone until we know what the records say. So I put the phone face down. The next morning, Caroline Shaw sat across from me in her office with the conservatorship papers spread between us. Her office smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner, and every few seconds I could hear the copier working behind the wall. You called Andrew? She said. Yes. I asked you not to. You did. Caroline removed her glasses. And he said it wasn't supposed to go this far. Her pen stopped above her legal pad. Exact words? Exact. Did you ask what he meant? No. Good. That surprised me. Caroline put her glasses back on. Right now, Michael, Lauren has a story. You have questions. Questions are useful, but they aren't evidence. She tapped the petition. And some of what's in here is true. I looked at her. You missed an appointment, Caroline continued. You forgot your wallet. You paid a bill twice. You've had trouble sleeping since Diane died. So we don't pretend those things didn't happen. Her voice never rose. That was one reason Diane had trusted her. What do? We find out whether the conclusion matches the facts. Caroline recommended an independent evaluation by a physician who had no relationship with Lauren, Andrew, or my regular doctor. She also wanted records from Dr. Reed, documenting my sleep problems after Diane's death. I hated the idea. Not because I thought I would fail, because I had spent 40 years walking onto commercial job sites where one mistake around live electrical equipment could kill a man, and now I was going to sit in a quiet office while someone decided whether I could manage a checkbook. Still, I went. The evaluator asked about the year, the month, my medications, my accounts, Diane's death, my work, and the bills I handled myself. He gave me numbers to remember, interrupted me with other questions, then asked for the numbers again. At one point he said, "Tell me about the duplicate payment." I paid the same invoice twice. How did that happen? I thought the second copy was a reminder. Does that happen often? No. How often? Once. He wrote something down. The scratch of his pen sounded louder than it should have. When the evaluation ended, he didn't pronounce me perfectly healthy or hand me some certificate saying Michael Grant could still be trusted with his own life. He said the formal report would go to Caroline. 3 days later, she called. The evaluation does not support the claim that you're unable to manage your financial affairs. I sat at my kitchen table with one hand around a mug that had already gone cold. Say that again. Caroline did. Then she added, it also notes the sleep disruption and grief-related lapses you reported. There it was. Not victory. Something cleaner. The truth had edges on both sides. Dr. Reed's record said much the same thing. After Diane died, I had complained about sleeping 3 or 4 hours some nights. I'd misplaced my wallet. Once, I left groceries in the trunk until evening. Ordinary mistakes, maybe, but I couldn't decide they were ordinary simply because I wanted them to be. So I started keeping a notebook. Every payment, every appointment, every conversation about money. On the third evening, I wrote Tuesday beside the medical appointment mentioned in Lauren's petition. Then I stopped. Tuesday. I remembered putting it into my phone, yet the clinic had called me on Thursday, asking why I hadn't arrived. The next morning, I contacted the clinic and asked for the appointment history. After verifying my identity, the employee told me the original appointment had been scheduled for Tuesday and later changed through the patient portal. To Thursday? I asked. Yes, sir. Who changed it? I can't determine that from what I'm allowed to tell you over the phone. You can request the account records. My fingers tightened around the receiver. When was it changed? She gave me the date. I wrote it down. Lauren had still been helping me with appointments then. After Diane died, there had been weeks when opening mail felt like another household chore I hadn't learned properly because Diane had always sorted medical paperwork before breakfast. Lauren offered to help. At the time, it seemed kind. I had given her temporary portal access. That did not prove she changed anything. I wrote that sentence in my notebook, too. No shortcuts, Caroline agreed. Access is opportunity, she told me later. It isn't proof of action. So we request the audit information. Yes. And you change your password today. I did. Then I went through the folder where I kept household bills. Paper slid against paper while the ceiling fan clicked above me. Electric bill, property tax statement, insurance, a plumbing receipt, then 2 invoices from the same vendor landed side by side. Same company, same amount, same job. I stared at them. The duplicate payment from the petition. One invoice had arrived normally. The second was a PDF I had printed from an email. My stomach gave a small, unpleasant turn, but I kept going. I searched my inbox. Lauren's name appeared beside the attachment. Her message was short. You probably already paid this, but check. I read it twice. Then I checked my bank records. First payment. Second payment. Same amount. The second had cleared after Lauren sent me the PDF. I called Caroline. I found the duplicate bill. You already knew about it. No. I found how I got it twice. Silence on her end. Tell me exactly what you have. I explained the original invoice, Lauren's email, the attached PDF, and both payments. Caroline waited until I finished. Forward the email to me without altering it. Keep the original in your account. You think she sent it deliberately? I think we know she sent you a document that appears to duplicate an invoice you had already received. That's what we know. Precise again. I wanted a stronger answer. She refused to give me one. That night, Andrew called. His name lit the phone beside my plate. I let it ring twice before answering. Dad, Lauren says you changed your medical portal password. I put down my fork. How would Lauren know? A pause. She tried to check something. For me? That's what she's been doing. Did I ask her? Andrew exhaled. Why are you making everything sound suspicious? I asked one question. She's trying to help you. With what? Another pause. Longer this time. Andrew lowered his voice. You've had a rough year. That wasn't my question. Dad. There was a tiredness in the way he said it, the same tone he used when his children argued in the back seat. I looked at Lauren's email on my laptop. Did Lauren ever send you a bill to see whether you'd pay it twice? What? Simple question. No. Too fast. I heard a door close on his end. Then Andrew said, You need to stop treating every mistake like somebody did it to you. I didn't answer. He continued, quieter now. That's exactly what worries her. The call ended a minute later without either of us saying goodbye. I sat there listening to the refrigerator cycle off. A missed appointment could be a missed appointment. A forgotten wallet could be a forgotten wallet. Even paying a bill twice could be exactly what Lauren said it was. But something had changed. For the first time, I could trace one of the mistakes backward. Not to my memory, to something someone had sent me. The next morning, Caroline called before 9. I received your forwarded email, she said. We're going to preserve it and compare the invoice with the vendor's records. Don't contact the company yourself yet. All right. There's something else. The clinic confirmed they retain portal activity records. We're requesting the relevant information. I looked at my notebook. 2 incidents. 2 records. Neither proved what Lauren had done. Not yet. Before hanging up, Caroline asked, Michael, who originally sent you the second invoice? I looked at the email header again, although I already knew. Lauren. The word barely left my mouth. Then I noticed the date. I pulled the petition closer and found the paragraph about my duplicate payment. Lauren had sent me the second invoice less than 2 weeks before. Andrew signed his declaration saying my financial mistakes had become a pattern. The date on Lauren's email sat there like a thumbprint. I printed the message and placed it beside the copy of the petition. Paper brushed against paper. Same timeline, same small mistake, different meaning. By noon, Caroline had me back in her office with my notebook open between us. Don't make the jump for me, she said. What jump? That Lauren created the duplicate on purpose. She sent it. Yes. And then Andrew used the payment as proof I couldn't manage money. Yes. So what am I supposed to call that? Caroline capped her pen. A question worth answering. I leaned back in the chair. She continued. If you decide what happened before the records do, Lauren's attorney will say you're fitting facts into a theory. We're going to do the opposite. That was easier to say than live with. For the next few days, I built a timeline. December, January, February. Every mistake mentioned in the petition went on one page. Every financial question I had asked Andrew went on another. The pattern didn't shout at me. It whispered. The incidents grew closer together after I asked Andrew why the emergency account balance looked low. That happened in late December. A week later, I missed the medical appointment. Then came the duplicate bill. Then the late-night visit Lauren described as me showing up confused. By the time February arrived, Andrew had signed his declaration. I circled the dates in pencil. then erased the circles because they looked too much like conclusions. Caroline would have approved. A family lunch at Helen's house gave Lauren exactly what she needed from me. Nobody announced an intervention. Nobody said conservatorship. My sister served chicken salad, rolls, and iced tea while two cousins talked about property taxes and somebody's knee replacement. Then Helen asked, "Mike, are you still handling your banking yourself?" The room changed without anybody moving. My cousin Barbara looked down at her plate. Lauren sat 3 chairs away with both hands around her glass. "Yes," I said. Helen nodded too quickly. "Good. I was just asking." "Why?" "No reason." Lauren spoke before Helen could answer. "We're all trying to make sure Michael doesn't have too much on him." Her tone was gentle. That made it worse. "I've had bills for 40 years, I said. Lauren gave a small smile. "Nobody said you haven't." "Then why are my bills being discussed over lunch?" Andrew shifted beside her. "Dad, don't turn this into something." I looked at him. "What is it then?" His jaw tightened. Lauren touched his wrist. "We're concerned," she said. There was that word again. Barbara finally looked up. "After Diane, maybe having someone double-check things wouldn't be the worst idea." The fork in my hand hit the plate harder than I meant it to. "I don't need a room full of people deciding whether I can balance a damn checkbook." Nobody answered. Lauren didn't need to. She lowered her eyes and rested her hand on Andrew's arm. That image traveled home with me. Not because she had won an argument, because I had given her one. The next morning, I wrote a sentence at the top of a fresh notebook page. Records first, then questions. Andrew called that afternoon. "Dad, can we talk about the doorbell video?" I stopped writing. "What doorbell video?" Another pause. Lauren mentioned it in the filing. I flipped through the petition. There it was. A description of me arriving at their townhouse close to midnight, carrying a small bag and appearing uncertain about why I was there. I remember going over. Andrew exhaled. "Do you remember why?" "You texted me." "For what?" I closed my eyes. "Medicine. A bottle from the pharmacy I had picked up earlier because Andrew had been dealing with a bad migraine and said he didn't want Lauren driving out after the kids were asleep. I brought you medication." Andrew didn't answer. "You asked me to." "I don't remember exactly." "You don't remember?" "Dad, it was months ago." I stood and walked toward the cabinet where Diane used to keep old phone chargers, receipts, and manuals nobody ever threw away. "Do you still have the doorbell recording?" "I think so." "Send Caroline the original." Andrew's voice sharpened. "Why Caroline?" "Because Lauren put it in court papers. That doesn't mean we have to turn every family thing into evidence. It became evidence when your wife used it." Silence. Then Andrew said, "Fine." The original export arrived 2 days later. Caroline had asked Andrew to provide it directly from the account, rather than forwarding a screen recording. Andrew was an authorized account holder, so we didn't have to guess about access or play games with cloud passwords. The timestamp did not match Lauren's declaration. Not by hours. By days. I stared at the screen in Caroline's conference room. "That's not the date in the petition." "No," Caroline said. The video itself was real. There I was, walking up Andrew's front path with a pharmacy bag in one hand. My jacket was half zipped. I paused near the door because the porch light had gone out, then looked down at my phone. Without context, it could look strange. With the date corrected, something else became possible. My old phone had been backed up automatically before I replaced it. Andrew also kept messages synced across his tablet. With his permission, Caroline asked him to preserve the thread around that date. The text was still there. Andrew had written, "Dad, did you already pick up the migraine prescription? Then, can you drop it off? Kids are asleep and Lauren's in the shower." My reply was short. "On my way." I read it once. Then again. Caroline folded her hands. "This does not prove Lauren intentionally used the wrong date." "No. But it weakens that incident. She knew why I was there." "Can you prove that?" I looked at the message again. Andrew had sent it. Lauren might claim she hadn't known. Another question. Always another question. But the shape of things had changed. One mistake in a declaration could be careless. Two incidents with missing context were harder to ignore. The clinic appointment had been moved. The doorbell video had been described under the wrong date, and the duplicate invoice had reached me through Lauren. None of those facts, standing alone, told me what she had done. Together, they told me where to look next. Money. That evening, I pulled the emergency account statements. I had opened the account years earlier and added Andrew as co-owner when he was younger. During his unemployment, we had used it more often. Groceries, insurance, rent shortages. Things a father tells himself are temporary because temporary sounds healthier than dependency. The balance I remembered from December was gone. Not all at once. Several transfers. I moved closer to the lamp. A recipient name appeared more than once through the transaction trail. Mercer, Industrial Services. Lauren's maiden name was Mercer. Her brother Evan owned a small industrial service company. I wrote the company name in my notebook. Then I checked the totals. My pencil stopped. Roughly $84,000 had left the account through a series of transfers and related payments. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and a neighbor's garage door rolling shut somewhere down the block. I checked the math again. Same number. I had never approved $84,000 for Evan's business. Never. The next morning, Caroline called before I could call her. "Michael, I want you to come in. I found something." So did I. My fingers tightened around the phone. "What?" "Not over the phone." I looked at the statements spread across my kitchen table. One transfer, then another, then another. For the first time, the conservatorship petition no longer looked like the main problem. It looked like cover. And whatever sat underneath it had already moved $84,000 out of an account with my name on it. Caroline's conference room was empty except for a legal pad, a glass pitcher of water, and the bank statements I had carried in under my arm. She closed the door behind me. "You said you found something." "So did you." Caroline pulled out a chair. "You first." I spread the statements across the table and turned them so she could read the highlighted transfers. $84,000. Her eyes moved from one page to the next. "From the emergency account?" "Yes." "Over what period?" "Several transfers. Not one lump sum." Caroline picked up a page and held it closer. "Andrew is still a co-owner?" "He is." "And Lauren?" "Not on the account." "Did she ever have online access?" I hated the answer. "Yes." Andrew gave her access while he was unemployed. She handled utilities, insurance, rent shortages. I knew she was helping with household expenses. Caroline set the statement down. "That matters." I figured it would. It means we don't call every transfer theft simply because you didn't personally click a button. Andrew had ownership rights. Lauren had access through him. We need to know what authority she was given, what representations were made, and where the money went. I pointed to the recipient. "Mercer Industrial Services." "Lauren's brother?" "Evan Mercer." Caroline nodded once. "That's what I found too." She opened a folder. The bank had produced preliminary transaction records after my request as co-owner. One group of transfers went through an intermediary business account before reaching Evan's company. Another group moved elsewhere. About $60,000 appears to have ended up with Mercer Industrial Services, Caroline said. "And the rest?" "We're still tracing it." My chair creaked when I leaned back. "For what?" "That's what records are for." Same answer as always. Records first. The following afternoon, Evan agreed to meet me at a coffee shop near his industrial park in Anaheim. I had expected Caroline to come, but she said I could ask questions as long as I didn't threaten him, accuse him of a crime, or negotiate anything. Evan arrived 10 minutes late, wearing work boots and a gray polo with his company name stitched over the chest. He smelled faintly of machine oil and aftershave. "Michael." "Evan." He sat across from me and looked at the folder beside my coffee. "That about the loan?" One word did more work than an entire speech. "Which loan?" Evan's eyebrows pulled together. "The bridge money." "Bridge between what?" His hand stopped halfway to the sugar packets. "Lauren said you knew." I let the silence sit. Evan looked toward the counter, then back at me. She said you approved temporary help because we were tied up in a commercial dispute. Receivables got held, attorneys got involved, nothing permanent. How much did she say I approved? 60,000? He nodded. I slid one statement across the table. Show me where I approved it. Evan didn't touch the paper. She told me you didn't want Andrew involved in the details. That sounds like me? He rubbed his jaw. Honestly? Not really. Did you ever speak to me about this money? No. Did you get an agreement with my signature? No. A text? No. Email? Evan shifted in his chair. Lauren handled it. I waited. His coffee machine hissed behind us as someone steamed milk. Finally, Evan pulled out his phone. I have emails. From Lauren? Yes. He scrolled for a moment. Then he turned the screen toward me. One message said, Dad knows. He just doesn't want Andrew dragged into it. My throat went dry. Not because she had used my name, because she had used it casually. As if my consent was a household appliance everyone knew how to operate. Can you send that to Caroline? Evan looked at me. Am I in trouble? I don't know. That's comforting. I'm not your lawyer. His mouth tightened. No kidding. I gave him Caroline's contact information. Before leaving, Evan said, Michael, if Lauren told me something that wasn't true, I'll cooperate. But I'm not taking blame for some family fight. Neither am I. That evening, a new filing from Lauren's side arrived through Caroline. The language was careful. Michael Grant had become increasingly suspicious. Michael Grant had made accusations about family members taking his money. Michael Grant had begun interpreting ordinary financial activity as evidence of wrongdoing. I read the page twice. The trick was simple. The more I looked, the more looking itself became suspicious. I called Andrew. He answered from his car. I could hear the low thump of a turn signal. Dad, did I approve a $60,000 loan to Evan? The turn signal kept clicking. Andrew said nothing. Did you hear me? I heard you. Then answer. I don't remember you saying yes. I sat down. That wasn't my question. Andrew's voice flattened. What do you want me to say? The truth. I don't remember it either way. Do you remember Lauren telling Evan I approved it? No. Do you remember the money leaving? Another pause. Dad, we used that account for family expenses. $60,000 didn't buy groceries. His turn signal stopped. Then Andrew said, You're talking to people now? People? Evan. How do you know I talked to Evan? The line went quiet. I heard traffic around him. Lauren guessed, he said. Did she? Come on. Andrew, you signed a declaration saying I couldn't manage financial decisions. Now money is missing from an account with both our names on it. And your answer is that you don't remember whether I approved it. Nothing is missing. The words came too quickly. I leaned forward. What does that mean? I mean, it didn't disappear. It went somewhere. To your brother-in-law's business. He needed help. So you knew. Andrew exhaled hard. I knew there were transfers. I didn't handle all of them. Did I approve them? I told you. I don't remember. I closed my eyes for a second. There it was again. Not a lie I could prove. Not the truth either. After the call, I wrote Andrew's exact words in my notebook. Nothing is missing. It went somewhere. 2 days later, Caroline received more detailed bank records. She called me in. The bank's login history did not give us a magical answer. No flashing name appeared beside the transfers. The account had been accessed from devices tied to Andrew and Lauren's household. Andrew had access. Lauren had access. That was all the data could establish by itself. Caroline pointed to one entry. This activity did not originate from the device you normally use. But it could have been Andrew. Yes. Or Lauren. Yes. So we still don't know. We know more than we did. I pushed the paper away. That doesn't feel like much. It isn't supposed to feel like anything. Caroline's tone stayed even. Facts don't owe us satisfaction. I almost laughed. Diane would have liked that sentence. Caroline opened another folder. Evan sent the emails. My attention snapped back. There were several. Lauren had discussed timing, repayment, cash shortages. One email referred to the money as Dad's bridge. Another said, he's not going to ask for paperwork if it's back before spring. I read that line 3 times. Caroline watched me. Still, no direct admission that Michael Grant did not consent, she said. But the wording matters, because she expected me not to ask. Possibly. Because she knew there was no paperwork. Possibly. I pressed my fingertips against the table. I hate that word. It keeps people from saying things they can't prove. Before I left, Caroline handed me copies. Do not call Lauren. I won't. Do not call Evan again unless we discuss it. All right. And don't move the emergency account money without talking to the bank and me first. Andrew is a co-owner. We need clean conduct from you. Clean conduct. Yes. I'm the one being accused of not knowing what I'm doing. Then give nobody an easy example. I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat. At a red light, my phone buzzed. Evan. I waited until I was parked before opening the message. He had found one more email. The timestamp was from January. Lauren had written, once this is settled, he won't be managing the accounts himself anyway. No mention of concern. No mention of grief. No mention of helping me. Just an assumption. I read it once more, then set the phone down. For weeks, I had been asking whether Lauren was trying to make me look incapable. That message changed the question. She had already been planning for a time when I would no longer be the one managing my own money. The message from Evan stayed on my phone until the screen dimmed. I read it one more time before forwarding it to Caroline. Her reply came less than a minute later. Do not respond to Lauren. Bring everything tomorrow. By then, my case had stopped feeling like a family argument and started feeling like a test I could fail simply by reacting the wrong way. The probate court review was set for the following week. Caroline spent the days before it stripping emotion out of everything I wanted to say. Lauren insulted me. Not relevant. Andrew betrayed me. Not enough by itself. Money moved without my consent. Important, but still separate from the question before the court. Stay inside the issue, Caroline told me as we sat in her office. Can you manage your financial affairs? Can you understand transactions? Can you resist pressure? That is where we win or lose. I rubbed the ridge of scar tissue across my left thumb, a souvenir from a panel box 20 years earlier. And the $84,000? We preserve it. We investigate it. But if you turn this hearing into a trial of Lauren, you give her room to say you're obsessed with accusations. So I'm supposed to ignore it? No. You're supposed to prove you can separate one problem from another. That landed harder than I expected. For months, Lauren had treated my mistakes like pieces of one story. Now I had to do the opposite. The morning of the review, the hallway outside the courtroom smelled like floor wax and burnt coffee. Shoes squeaked against polished tile. Somewhere down the corridor, a bailiff called a name I didn't recognize. Lauren sat beside Andrew on a wooden bench. She wore a navy dress and carried a slim folder on her lap. No raised voice, no smug smile. When she saw me, she stood. Michael. I stopped a few feet away. Lauren. Her expression softened just enough for anyone watching. I hope this can stay respectful. Caroline came up beside me before I answered. It will. Lauren looked at her, then back at me. That's all I want. Andrew never stood. He stared at his shoes. Inside, nobody made a dramatic speech. There was no pounding gavel, no sudden verdict, nothing that would have satisfied the version of events I had played out in my head. Instead, facts came out slowly. Lauren described my sleep problems after Diane died. True. She mentioned the forgotten wallet. True. She described the duplicate bill. Also true, at least in the simplest sense. Then came the missed appointment, the late-night visit, my decision to stop supporting Andrew and Lauren, and finally, the financial accusations. Lauren's voice stayed low. After Michael's wife passed, we tried to help where we could. At first it was appointments and paperwork. Then he began forgetting things. Lately, when we try to help, he sees it as interference. The attorney, questioning her, asked whether she believed I was unable to manage money. Lauren paused. I believe he may need protection from making decisions when he's under stress. May. Protection. Stress. Careful words. She sounded nothing like the woman who had asked me how it felt to be useless. That was the point. When it was my turn, Caroline walked me through the independent evaluation. My accounts, the bills I still managed, the retirement income I tracked, and the mistakes I admitted. I did not pretend the year after Diane's death had been clean. I slept badly, I said. Sometimes I still do. Did that affect your daily routine? Caroline asked. Yes. How? I misplaced things, forgot an appointment, paid one bill twice. The opposing attorney looked up. I kept going. One mistake doesn't become two, because I'm embarrassed by it. Caroline nodded. Let's talk about the appointment. The clinic records showed the original date. Then the later portal change. No one claimed Lauren had made it. Not yet. The point was simpler. The petition said I had forgotten the appointment. The records showed the appointment itself had changed. Next came the doorbell video. Again, no accusation. Just the original timestamp and Andrew's preserved message asking me to bring medication. The late-night visit had happened. But not on the date Lauren's declaration suggested, and not without a reason. For a few minutes, I thought the entire thing was turning. Then Dr. Reed's records came up. Insomnia, fatigue, memory complaints. A note that I had once told him. Some days I walk into a room and forget why. I remembered saying it. At the time, Reed had chuckled and said half his patients said the same thing. On paper, without the chuckle, it looked different. The opposing attorney asked, "You told your doctor you were having memory problems?" I told him I was sleeping badly and forgetting small things. Is forgetting why you entered a room a small thing? Depends what room. A couple of people shifted in their seats. Caroline glanced at me. Not amused. I corrected myself. It happened occasionally. I was not getting lost. I was not missing payments regularly. I was not unable to manage my accounts. The review continued. No collapse. No rescue. By the time we stepped into the hallway, my shirt collar felt too tight. What happens now? I asked. Caroline kept her voice quiet. The court is not granting anything today. There will be further review. We'll provide additional records. So I still control my accounts? Yes. For now? For now, and unless the court orders otherwise. Stop treating every procedural step like a verdict. I gave her a look. You make that sound easy. I didn't say it was easy. Lauren and Andrew emerged behind us. Lauren stopped several feet away. I'm glad nobody rushed anything, she said. Caroline answered before I could. So are we. Andrew touched Lauren's elbow. Let's go. But he looked at me. Not long. Enough. That evening, he came by my house alone. No call first. The doorbell rang twice, and when I opened the door, Andrew stood on the porch with both hands in his jacket pockets. What do you want? He looked past me toward the living room. Can I come in? I stepped aside. Andrew sat on the edge of the couch. I stayed in the chair across from him. For a while, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, Maybe you should stop digging. The words were so quiet I almost missed them. Into what? Everything. I leaned forward. Why? Andrew rubbed his palms together. Because not everything gets better when you know. I watched him. That sentence did not sound like concern for my memory. It sounded like warning. Does Lauren know you're here? His face changed just a fraction. No. Does she know you're telling me to stop? Dad, I'm trying to keep this from getting worse. For who? Andrew stood. That's exactly what I mean. What is? You keep pushing until everyone has to pick a side. I got up too. No. Somebody picked sides before I knew there was a fight. His jaw worked. Then Andrew grabbed his keys from the coffee table. At the door, he stopped. You think finding every piece of paper is going to fix this? No. Then why keep going? Because somebody filed papers saying I can't manage my own life. Andrew looked down. There it was again. Silence instead of denial. He left without another word. The next morning, a voicemail was waiting from the vendor whose invoice had been duplicated. The man identified himself as the billing manager and asked me to call Caroline before responding directly. I forwarded the message to her. 20 minutes later, she called. Michael. The vendor checked their billing system. I stood beside the kitchen table. And? They issued one invoice. My grip tightened around the phone. What about the second PDF? It did not come from their billing system. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The refrigerator clicked off. Caroline continued. That still doesn't tell us who created it, but it changes what we know. I looked toward the printed email Lauren had sent me. You probably already paid this, but check. A simple sentence. Friendly almost. The vendor had issued one bill. Somebody had created another, and Lauren had been the person who put the second one in my hands. Caroline would not let me say more than that. Not yet. 2 mornings later, I sat in her office while a digital records specialist compared the vendor's original file with the PDF Lauren had forwarded to me. The specialist spoke in plain terms, which I appreciated. The second document wasn't generated by the vendor's billing system, he said. Its file history is different. The formatting is close, but not identical. Can you tell who made it? No. That answer scraped against me. So somebody can create this, send it to me, watch me pay twice, and we still can't say who did it? Caroline looked over her glasses. We can say who sent it. I turned toward her. Lauren. Yes. And Andrew used the payment in his declaration. Yes. The specialist slid the printouts toward us. Those are separate facts. Don't fuse them unless other evidence supports the connection. Again, no shortcuts. By then, I had started hearing Caroline's voice in my own head whenever I wanted to jump ahead. Fact, then maybe conclusion. I took copies home. Andrew came by that evening. This time he called first. Can we talk? You said that last time. I mean it. He arrived after 7, alone again. The kids were apparently with Lauren's mother, and Lauren was working late. That was what Andrew told me. I had no way to know whether it was true, so I left it alone. He sat at my kitchen table while I poured coffee neither of us really wanted. For a minute, Andrew stared at the chipped sugar bowl that had belonged to Diane. Mom never threw that thing out. She liked it. It's broken. Chipped. Andrew almost smiled. Then it disappeared. I put the 2 invoices on the table. Tell me what you know. His eyes moved between them. About what? Andrew. He rubbed the back of his neck. That's the invoice? The vendor issued one. He said nothing. The second one came from Lauren. Andrew's chair shifted slightly. Dad, maybe she downloaded it twice. The second file didn't come from the vendor system. His fingers stopped moving. I watched him. Did Lauren make it? I don't know. Did she tell you anything about it? Andrew looked toward the doorway. Then he said, She said she was testing whether you'd notice. The refrigerator hummed behind us. I didn't move. Testing me? Andrew swallowed. She thought if you caught it, then maybe she was overreacting. Overreacting to what? To everything. Say it clearly. He rubbed both palms against his jeans. She wanted to know if you were paying attention, so she sent me a second bill. I didn't say she created it. No. You said she was testing me. Andrew flinched at his own words. That wasn't how she put it exactly. How did she put it exactly? He shook his head. I don't remember. There it was again. That convenient fog. I leaned back. Funny how your memory gets bad right when mine gets discussed. Andrew looked up sharply. That's not fair. No? No. I'm here, aren't I? I let that sit for a moment. Yes. You are. He stared at the coffee. Finally, Andrew said, She thought you needed a pattern. A pattern of what? Mistakes. And if the mistakes didn't happen fast enough? His jaw tightened. Don't do that. Do what? Make me say something I didn't say. I pushed the invoices closer. I'm not making you do anything. Andrew's shoulders dropped. After a while, he said, Lauren said nobody would take one missed appointment seriously, or one bill. She said if something was really wrong, There would be a pattern, and she wanted to document one. Yes. The word barely came out. Did you know about these tests before you signed the declaration? Andrew looked at me. Not quickly, not proudly. Yes. That answer had weight. More than the money. For a second, I picked up my mug and realized my hand had gone stiff around the handle. How many? I don't know. How many, Andrew? I knew about the invoice. I knew she was checking appointments. I didn't know everything. You signed anyway. His voice cracked around the edges. I thought we were helping you. No. You thought she was right. That's not the same thing. It was when you signed your name. Andrew pushed back from the table. Dad, if you had fallen for nothing, if you had caught everything, none of this would have mattered. I looked at him. You hear yourself? He stood. I'm not saying it right. No, I think you are. Andrew pressed both hands to the countertop. For a moment, he looked younger than 43. Not like a child, just like a man who had run out of places to hide. I asked one more question. The 84,000. His eyes closed briefly. That's different. How? It just is. Did Lauren move it? Andrew grabbed his keys. I'm not doing this. You came here. I came here to tell you about the invoice. You came here because you're scared of what I'll find next. He stopped at the door. That account was used for more than one thing. What things? Andrew opened the door. I said that's different. Then he left. The next morning, I told Caroline every word I could remember. She wrote it down without reacting. When I finished, she asked, Did Andrew say Lauren created the invoice? No. Did he say she sent it as a test? Yes. Did he admit he knew about testing before signing the declaration? Yes. That matters. I watched her write. What about the money? He refused. So we don't fill that gap for him. I hated how often she was right. Around noon, Caroline's assistant transferred a call from a woman named Denise Porter. I knew Denise. Not well. Diane had appointed her years earlier as independent trustee of the family trust that owned the townhouse Andrew and Lauren lived in. Denise's voice was brisk. Michael, I'm calling because something came across my desk that requires review. What kind of something? A financial application involving the townhouse. I sat straighter. Andrew doesn't own that property. No. The trust does. Then what application? I need to be careful because I'm reviewing documents and obligations under the lease. But the application represents the household as having an ownership or equity interest that they do not have. My free hand went flat against the table. For borrowing? Yes. For Evan? I'm not ready to characterize the purpose yet. That was Caroline's kind of sentence. I almost smiled. Almost. Denise continued. The lease also restricts using the property, or any supposed trust interest, to support borrowing. I have a signed acknowledgement page. Whose signature? There was a brief pause. Andrew Grant. For a second, I thought I had misheard. My son? Yes. When? Denise gave me the date. Weeks after Andrew signed the declaration about my finances, I looked toward the folder on my counter. One signature saying I might not be able to manage my own money. Another signature claiming an interest in property Andrew did not own. Are you evicting them? No. The answer came immediately. I'm reviewing a possible lease breach. They will receive notice and an opportunity to respond. If anything further happens, it will happen through the lease and California law. You do not control that process. I understand. I need you to understand one more thing. Don't contact them about this on my behalf. I won't. After the call, I sat alone at the kitchen table. For weeks, I had believed Lauren was the center of everything. Maybe she still was. But Andrew's signature changed the shape of the problem. Again. My son had signed papers questioning whether I could manage my own financial affairs. Then he had signed another document, claiming rights over property he knew belonged to a trust. I opened my notebook and wrote both dates beside each other. 2 signatures, 2 different stories, same hand. That was what stayed with me. Andrew had signed one set of papers, suggesting I could no longer handle my own financial affairs, then another document treating trust property as if he had rights he did not have. By the time he called the next afternoon, I had both dates written in my notebook. Dad, Denise contacted us. I know. A pause. You know? She called me. Why would she call you? Because the trust owns the townhouse. Andrew's breath came through the phone slowly. Can we meet? Here. Lauren wants to come. No. Silence. Then Andrew said, Fine. He arrived 40 minutes later. No jacket this time. Just a wrinkled blue shirt with the sleeves pushed up, like he had left work in the middle of something. His keys hit my kitchen table with a light metallic clatter. I placed the copy of the housing application in front of him. Explain your signature. Andrew looked down. You already know what Denise said. I know what Denise found. I asked about your signature. His chair creaked. I signed paperwork. You signed a statement that made it look like you had equity in a townhouse you rent from a trust. That's not how it was explained to me. How was it explained? Andrew rubbed his forehead. That the trust relationship could support the application. Support what? A financing package? For Evan? His hand dropped. Partly. There it was. Not a full answer. More than before. You read the acknowledgement? I skimmed it. You signed it. Dad, people sign things. I looked at him. When I was wiring commercial buildings, people signed inspection reports too. If they lied on them, buildings burned. Andrew's jaw tightened. This isn't a job site. No, it's worse. This is family. He pushed the paper away. You think I don't know I screwed up? I don't know what you know. You've spent months making sure of that. Andrew stood, paced once toward the sink, then came back. Lauren said it wasn't claiming ownership. She said it was showing stability, family backing, access to property. Property you don't own. I know that now. You knew it then. He looked at me. For the first time, he didn't answer quickly. I knew the trust owned it. That's the same thing. No, it isn't. Then explain the difference. Andrew sat again. His hands stayed flat on the table. Lauren was trying to keep everything from collapsing. Everything meaning Evan, us, all of it. I waited. Andrew's voice dropped. When you started asking about the emergency account, she knew you'd want records. She knew you'd want explanations for every transfer. I did. She said if we could get control of things temporarily, just long enough to straighten out the money, repay what had to be repaid, then maybe you'd never have to see how bad it got. The words came out unevenly now, not rehearsed. What do you mean by control? Andrew swallowed. The accounts, the records, making sure bills were handled, making sure nobody moved money around because they were upset. Nobody? He looked away. I leaned closer. Say it. You. So the conservatorship was supposed to help hide the transfers. No. Then what was it supposed to do? To buy time. For Lauren? For everybody. No, Andrew. Time from who? His eyes came back to mine. From you. The refrigerator kicked on behind us. A low mechanical hum filled the space between us. How much time? I don't know. Until the money was back? Yes. How? Andrew shook his head. Evan thought he could repay once his dispute cleared. Lauren thought some of the household debt could be covered another way. She kept saying it was temporary. And if I found the transfers first? She said you'd react. I did react. She meant you'd make accusations. Accurate ones? Dad, were they accurate? He pressed his lips together. I opened the folder and slid Evan's email toward him. Once this is settled, he won't be managing the accounts himself anyway. Andrew read it. His shoulders sank. You saw that? Yes. He didn't ask how. That told me enough. What did Lauren mean? Andrew rubbed both hands over his face. She thought if the court saw enough of a pattern, then anything you said about the money would look like part of the same problem. I kept still. Those exact words? No. What were the exact words? He stared at the tabletop. Then, almost too quietly to hear, Andrew said, once the court sees the pattern, nobody will take his accusations seriously. The sentence landed without drama. No raised voice. No slammed door. Just my son repeating the words of the woman he married. You heard her say that? Yes. And you signed anyway. Andrew's eyes lifted. I thought she meant until we fixed it. You thought making me less believable was temporary? She said, we were protecting you from making decisions while you were upset. And you believed that? His answer came slowly. I wanted to. That one hurt differently. Because it sounded true. I closed the folder. Then hear me now. Andrew sat straighter. I'm not covering your signature on that application. I'm not telling Denise you misunderstood paperwork you knew involved trust property. And I'm not telling Caroline you were confused when you signed the declaration. Dad. No. He looked toward the hallway where family photographs still hung. You'd really let Denise terminate the lease? I'm not Denise. You know she'll listen to you. She shouldn't. Andrew stared at me. Those are your grandkids in that house. I know exactly who lives there. So, this is punishment. No. Punishment would be me calling Denise and telling her what to do. I'm doing the opposite. That's convenient. The words came sharp. I let them sit. Then I said, convenient was letting me pay your bills while your wife built a case that I couldn't manage mine. Andrew pushed away from the table. He stood there breathing through his nose, shoulders tight. I didn't stop him when he headed for the door. But before he opened it, I said, you still have choices. Andrew's hand stayed on the knob. What choices? Tell the truth before somebody proves it without you. He left. Denise called the following morning. Her voice carried no warmth and no hostility, just procedure. I've completed the first review of the lease and application documents. What happens now? Andrew and Lauren will receive written notice identifying the possible breaches and an opportunity to respond. Can they fix it? Some things may be curable. Late charges, certain payment defaults. False representations about ownership or attempted use of a trust interest are different. Counsel is reviewing that, so they're not being evicted. Not today. I appreciated the answer. She continued. If tenancy is terminated and they do not leave voluntarily, the trust would have to use the lawful California process. No lock changes, no removing property, no shortcuts. I understand. One more thing, Michael. If either of them asks you to intervene, I expect you to direct them to me or counsel. I will. You are a trust beneficiary, but you are not the landlord making this decision. Understood. That mattered more than I wanted to admit. If Lauren lost the townhouse, I needed it to happen because of what she and Andrew had signed, not because I had turned grief and anger into a weapon. That evening, Andrew sent me screenshots. No explanation at first. Just messages. Lauren's name sat above them. You told him? Then another. After everything I did to keep this family together. A minute later, you're going to regret turning him against his own family. I read the 3 messages in order. Then Andrew finally texted. She knows I talked. I typed back, what did you tell her? The reply took almost 5 minutes. Enough. I stared at that word. Not everything. Enough. Then another message appeared. She says, I betrayed her. I set the phone down and looked at the 2 signatures still written side by side in my notebook. For months, Andrew had told himself he was protecting his marriage. Now the first crack had reached the inside of his house, and Lauren knew exactly where it came from. By morning, I had stopped rereading Lauren's threat. Caroline had taught me something I wished I had learned years earlier. Repeating a threat doesn't make it evidence. Sometimes it only makes it louder. 2 weeks later, the conservatorship petition finally reached the point where the records mattered more than Lauren's concern. Caroline called me shortly after 10. Michael, it's done. I stood beside the kitchen counter, with one hand resting on Diane's old sugar bowl. What does done mean? The court has denied the conservatorship petition. I didn't answer. Caroline continued before I could turn that sentence into something larger. The petition has been denied after the court reviewed the supplemented record. Your independent evaluation mattered. So did the clinic records, the original doorbell information, and the invoice evidence. Andrew's limited correction mattered too. He clarified the late-night visit, admitted he knew Lauren had been testing your attention, and withdrew the parts of his declaration he could no longer stand behind. He didn't tell the court everything. Not yet. But he removed enough of his own support that Lauren's version could no longer carry the weight she had put on it. I pulled out a chair. Andrew's corrected declaration? Limited correction, Caroline said. Don't confuse it with full disclosure. Not everything. No. And don't confuse this with vindication on every other issue. The money investigation remains separate. Denise's lease review remains separate. I know. Do you? I almost smiled. Yes, Caroline. Good. Then enjoy one cup of coffee before somebody ruins your afternoon. Helen did it before noon. Her call came while I was pouring that coffee. Mike. She sounded smaller than usual. What? I heard. From who? Andrew. That surprised me. Helen cleared her throat. I owe you an apology. The coffee maker clicked behind me. You believed Lauren. I believed people who said they were worried. And when I told you I was fine, I thought maybe you didn't know. That sentence might have angered me months earlier. Now it only made me tired, Helen continued. I should have asked more questions. Yes. Another pause. I'm sorry. I looked at Diane's empty chair. Thank you. That was enough. For about 40 minutes. Then the family group messages started. Lauren did not accuse me of being confused anymore. That story had lost value. She replaced it. Michael waited until the court turned against us, then backed Denise while she tried to take our home. The wording traveled fast. By lunch, Barbara had texted asking whether I was really forcing Andrew and the kids out. I wrote back only once. Denise Porter is the trustee and landlord. I do not control the lease process. Barbara sent 3 dots. Then nothing. Lauren knew most relatives would not read trust documents. They would hear grandfather, grandchildren, and home. Simple. Effective. Caroline told me not to answer the group. Every response becomes another argument, she said. Let Denise handle the tenancy. That afternoon, Evan called. I need to show you something. We met at his office this time. Mercer Industrial Services occupied 2 suites in a low industrial building near Anaheim. A forklift beeped somewhere behind the warehouse wall, and the office smelled like cardboard, metal dust, and burnt coffee. Evan shut his door. I went back through everything. He placed a stack of bank records on the desk. You already know about the $60,000 that reached the company. Yes. That part stayed here. Payroll, vendors, legal costs. I can document it. And the rest? His mouth tightened. That's why you're here. He turned one page toward me. Several transfers had passed through an intermediary account associated with the financing arrangement. Evan had initially assumed they were part of the same bridge transaction. They weren't. Lauren gave me instructions for some of these. He said, What instructions? To send funds to accounts, she said, were connected to repayment and household stabilization. Household stabilization. That was her phrase. How much? About $24,000. The number filled the small office. Where did it go? Credit cards. Past due household expenses. One payment tied to Andrew and Lauren's rent obligations. A couple of other debts I'm still matching. I looked at him. You sent it? Some directly. Some through the intermediary. Why? Because I thought the whole thing was approved. By me. Yes. Evan leaned back. When you showed me there was no agreement, I started checking every instruction she sent. I don't want somebody saying I helped move money I wasn't entitled to touch. That was his reason. Not loyalty to me. Self-preservation. I trusted it more. Send everything to Caroline. I already told my lawyer I would. Before I left, Evan said, You know Lauren's going to say she used the money for family expenses. She already has. She'll say that makes it okay. I picked up my folder. That's not my decision. Lauren called me that evening. First time in weeks. Can we talk with attorneys? No. Her breathing changed slightly. I'm not asking you to sign anything. Then say what you called to say. You won. I looked out the kitchen window. This wasn't a game. That's easy to say from your side. What side is that? The side where you have retirement money and a paid-off house while your son has 2 children and bills stacked to the ceiling, and $84,000 left in account with my name on it. Lauren's voice sharpened. You were going to cut Andrew off anyway, so you made sure nobody believed me first? A pause. Then she said, I made sure one bad month didn't destroy 2 families. By telling a court I couldn't manage my own money? You were forgetting things. You helped create one of them. I sent you a bill. A bill the vendor never issued. You don't know who created it. She had learned Caroline's language too. No, I said. I know who sent it. Silence. Lauren changed direction. Andrew has been falling apart since his mother died. Don't use Diane. I'm talking about your son. So am I. Her voice dropped. If you push Denise, the kids lose their home. I'm not pushing Denise. You could stop her. No, don't pretend you can't. I rested my palm on the counter. I can ask a trustee to ignore documents. I can ask her to ignore a lease. That doesn't mean she should. Lauren gave a short laugh. So, this is about principles now? No. What is it about? The truth. She hung up. 2 days later, Denise sent formal notice to Andrew and Lauren, identifying the lease violations under review. Past due amounts could be addressed. Certain paperwork could be corrected, but the application's false representation of ownership or equity and the attempt to use a trust interest to support borrowing could not be erased by simply writing a check. They had a response period. No eviction yet, no locks changed, no sheriff, just paper. That was enough to make Lauren furious. Andrew arrived at my house 3 nights later. He carried no folder, no phone in his hand, just himself. When he sat at the kitchen table, something metallic clicked against the wood. His wedding ring. I looked at it. Andrew rubbed the pale band of skin around his finger. She says if I correct everything, she'll tell everyone I was part of all of it. I didn't touch the ring. Were you? Andrew looked at me. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. The kitchen clock clicked once. Then again. Finally, my son said, yes. The word was almost too quiet to hear. I stayed where I was. Yes, what? Andrew rubbed the pale strip around his ring finger. Yes, I was part of it. He pushed the ring a few inches away from himself. I didn't move all the money. I didn't make the invoice. I didn't change your appointment. But I knew Lauren was testing you. I knew she wanted enough incidents to make the court take her seriously. And I knew she had access to the emergency account. How much did you know about the transfers? His shoulders dropped. At first, not much. That's not an answer. I knew Evan needed money. Lauren said it would be temporary. She said the business dispute would clear, he'd repay it, and you'd never be out anything. And the $24,000 that came back toward your household? Andrew looked at the table. I knew some money came back. For credit cards? Yes. Rent? Yes. Other bills? He nodded. And when did you know it came from the same money that left the emergency account? Andrew swallowed. Before I signed the declaration, the refrigerator started humming behind him. I let the sound fill the room. Why? He rubbed his palms against his jeans. Because everything was already sliding. What does that mean? My job situation had wrecked our cash flow. Lauren had been carrying things. Then Evan got in trouble. She said if his business went under, her mother would end up supporting him, and that would pull everybody down. So you let her use my money. Andrew flinched. She said it was family money. No, she said that because it made stealing from the future sound polite. Dad, was I supposed to inherit from you? His face tightened. That's not what I meant. It's what she meant. Andrew stood and walked to the sink. For several seconds, his back stayed toward me. Then he said, she thought if the conservatorship went through, we'd have time to put everything back. Time. Bought. With what? Control. Of my accounts. Yes. My statements. Yes. My ability to question you. Andrew turned around. She thought if the court believed you were struggling, nobody would move fast on anything you claimed about the money until there was oversight. And while everybody slowed down, You repaid it. That was the plan. I looked at the man standing in my kitchen. At 43, Andrew had spent months telling himself he was buying time. He had actually been selling mine. The next morning, he came with me to Caroline's office. Not because I asked. He requested the meeting. Caroline made him repeat everything from the beginning. Slowly. No conclusions. No speeches. Just chronology. Andrew explained when Lauren first mentioned testing my attention. When she began using appointment changes and bills as proof that the problems were increasing. When he learned Evan had received money. When Lauren told him the household portion would be covered before I found out. When he signed the declaration, then the sentence I already knew. Once the court sees the pattern, nobody will take his accusations seriously. Caroline stopped writing. Did Lauren say that before or after you signed? Before. Did you understand she was talking about accusations concerning the money? Andrew looked at me before answering. Yes. Caroline's voice stayed flat. And you signed anyway. Yes. Nobody rescued him from that. After nearly 2 hours, Andrew handed over his phone and a folder containing printed emails he had kept from the months before the filing. Caroline would preserve what mattered through proper channels. She told him clearly that correcting his statement did not erase his conduct. You may have civil exposure, she said. The trust may act on your signature. Your participation in account access may matter. Telling the truth now is better than continuing the lie, but it does not make the earlier decisions disappear. Andrew nodded. I know. Carol looked at him. I'm not sure you do. He did not argue. When I returned home, the records finally lined up, without requiring me to guess what anyone had been thinking. Andrew's account filled the gaps the documents could not. His unemployment had led me to help more. That access had let Lauren handle household payments. Evan's trouble created the demand for cash. The transfers created the risk of discovery. My questions created urgency. After that came the appointment change, the duplicate invoice, the stripped-down version of the late-night visit, and Andrew's declaration. Each step had made the next one easier. By the time the conservatorship petition was filed, the money problem and the story about my competence were no longer separate problems. Nothing had happened because of one evil decision made on one afternoon. That almost made it worse. Small choices had stacked up until everybody was standing underneath them. Andrew called Lauren that evening. I was not there. He told me about it afterward and forwarded the messages. The first came from Lauren. You corrected everything? Andrew replied, everything I personally know. Her next message arrived immediately. So now I'm the criminal and you're the innocent husband? Andrew wrote back. I signed things I shouldn't have signed. Lauren answered. Because I was trying to save us. Then, you just handed your father a weapon. Andrew's response was the one I read twice. I did that months ago. I just picked the wrong person. The next 2 messages were from Lauren. No answer to what he meant. Only, don't come home tonight. Then, you'll explain this to the kids. Andrew spent the night at a hotel. I offered no guest room. That surprised him. Dad, you need somewhere that isn't mine or hers. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. 3 days later, Denise asked me and Andrew to join a conference call with Trust Counsel. She spoke first. The response period has closed. We reviewed the lease, the application documents, the corrected information, and the explanations provided. Andrew sat across from me in Caroline's conference room, both hands folded. Denise continued. The trustee has decided not to continue the tenancy after the current notice period. Andrew's fingers tightened. What does that mean exactly? It means the trust is terminating the tenancy under the lease and applicable California procedure based on material misrepresentations and uncured breaches. You will receive the effective move-out date in writing, and if we don't leave, then the trust would have to pursue the lawful possession process. Nobody is changing locks or removing property. Andrew looked at me. I did nothing. Denise said, Michael did not make this decision. That mattered. Andrew looked down. After the call, Caroline told us both to expect formal paperwork. No victory speech. No celebration. Just another consequence catching up. Lauren came to my house the following afternoon. She carried a slim folder. No perfume this time. No polished dinner voice. She placed the folder on my kitchen table. I'm willing to correct everything. I did not touch it. What does everything mean? My statements about your finances. The petition is over anyway. I'll cooperate with repayment. I'll work with Denise. And? Lauren opened the folder. A prepared statement waited inside. My name appeared near the bottom. She tapped one paragraph. You confirm that you knew about the bridge loan. I didn't. You knew Evan needed help. That isn't the same thing. You knew family money was being used. Not for $60,000 to Evan. Lauren's jaw tightened. Then say you understood the general arrangement. I didn't. She leaned closer. If you say you consented, the application stops looking like we lied about the financial backing. That's because I'd be lying for you. Her voice dropped. You would be keeping your grandchildren in their home. No. I'd be changing the record. Michael, please. There it was. Not Dad. Not Michael with that careful edge she used in court. Just please. I turned the page. The statement also said I understood and approved the use of the trust relationship as support for the financing. I looked up. This is false. It fixes the problem. No. It moves the problem onto my signature. Lauren pressed both palms against the table. One signature. You get your money repaid. Andrew keeps a roof over the kids. I correct the rest. Everybody walks away. I picked up the pen she had placed beside the paper. Lauren watched my hand. For 6 months, she had built a case that I could not make sound financial decisions. Now everything she wanted depended on one. I lowered the pen toward the signature line, then stopped. Lauren watched the tip hover above my name. No. Her face changed before her voice did. What? I set the pen down beside the statement. No. For a second, all I heard was the air conditioner pushing through the vent above us. Lauren straightened. Michael, don't do this because you're angry. I'm not signing something false. You know what I mean. I know exactly what you mean. She pulled the paper closer to herself, then pushed it back toward me, as if moving it 6 inches might change the words. You knew we were helping Evan. No. You knew money had been moving. Not like this. You knew Andrew was struggling. That isn't consent. Lauren's fingers curled against the edge of the table. If you sign, Denise has something she can consider. She already considered the documents you signed. This could change the context. It would change the truth. Her chair scraped backward. So that's it? That's it. You're willing to let your own grandchildren lose their home over wording? I looked at her. They're not losing a home because of wording. Her mouth tightened. You always do that. Do what? Make everything sound clean when it isn't. I almost laughed. Coming from her, that was something. Instead, I folded the unsigned statement once and slid it back across the table. You spent months telling people I couldn't make my own decisions. Lauren stared at the crease in the paper. This one's mine. She left without taking the pen. 3 days later, Caroline called with the next steps on the money. No thunder. No courtroom ambush. Just accounting. Evan's attorney had agreed to cooperate in tracing the $60,000 his company actually received. Some of it had already been spent on payroll, vendors, and legal expenses tied to the commercial dispute. Evan was working on a repayment structure because the money had reached his business through representations he now knew I disputed. The remaining $24,000 was uglier because it had flowed toward Andrew and Lauren's household obligations. Credit cards, rent-related shortages, other overdue bills. Caroline was careful. We deal with what can be documented, she said, not what feels obvious. So nobody goes to jail tomorrow. Michael, I'm kidding. You aren't very good at it. That made me smile. Barely. The civil side would take time. Recovery, settlement discussions, possible claims arising from disputed authority, misrepresentation, and the use of funds. Andrew's role as co-owner of the emergency account complicated everything enough that nobody with sense would promise a clean result. That was fine. Clean results belonged in stories people told after they removed the parts that made them uncomfortable. Real families left fingerprints everywhere. The townhouse deadline came the following week. Andrew called me from outside. "Can you come over?" "For what?" "Lauren wants to talk." "No." "Dad." I could hear boxes moving behind him. "She wants you there." I looked at the calendar on my kitchen wall. Move-out date. Same day as the scene that had started all of this 6 months earlier. "I'll come for you," I said. Not for another negotiation. When I arrived, packing tape snapped from somewhere upstairs. The same sharp sound I remembered from the beginning. Cardboard boxes lined the hall. One of the kids had written "books" in black marker across a crooked lid. Another box had "kitchen" written twice because someone had crossed out the first label. The house smelled like dust and cold coffee. Lauren stood at the counter. The paperwork was there. Again, not the same statement. A copy of the termination notice, correspondence from Denise's counsel, and the old declaration from the conservatorship case. Andrew came downstairs carrying a lamp. He set it down carefully. "Truck gets here in an hour." I nodded. Lauren looked at me. "You could still call Denise. Tell her you knew about the loan. Tell her the application was a family misunderstanding. Please, Michael. If this goes any further, we lose the townhouse. The tenancy has already been terminated. Then ask her to stop the eviction process before it starts. There won't be one if you leave by the deadline." Lauren pressed her fingertips against the counter. "You know what I mean." "I do." "Then help us." "By saying something that isn't true?" She looked toward the boxes in the hallway. "By keeping your grandchildren in their home." "No." "By putting my name underneath your version of what happened." Lauren gave a small, humorless laugh. "Convenient." Andrew picked up another box. "Lauren." "No, Andrew. Let him answer." I looked at her. "What answer do you want? The one where you admit this never had to happen?" I glanced toward the hallway. At the boxes. At my son. At the family photos they had already removed from the walls, leaving pale rectangles behind. "No," I said. "It didn't." Her expression sharpened. Then I added, "You could have stopped before the first filing." She looked away. That was the only time all afternoon she did. Andrew carried the box outside. When he returned, his wedding ring was still gone. Lauren noticed me looking at his hand. "He's being dramatic." Andrew stopped in the doorway. "No." One word. "Quiet." Lauren turned toward him. "What?" "I'm not being dramatic." The room stayed still. Andrew continued. "I signed things because I didn't want to fight with you." Lauren's eyes narrowed. "Not now." "Yes. Now." I stepped back. This was not mine to manage. Andrew rested both palms on the counter. I kept telling myself I was protecting the kids. Then Dad. Then you. Mostly I was protecting myself from having to admit what we'd done. Lauren shook her head. "Don't say we like you had no choices." I had choices. That landed harder than blame. Her voice dropped. "So did you, Michael. I know. You chose this." "Yes." I didn't soften it. "Yes." I chose not to lie. The moving truck arrived shortly after. No sheriff. No locks changed. No one threw furniture onto the curb. Andrew and Lauren left because the tenancy had ended, and they had chosen not to force the trust into a possession lawsuit. That mattered. Consequences did not need flashing lights to be real. By evening, the townhouse was mostly empty. Andrew handed the keys to Denise's property representative. Lauren stood beside the car with her arms folded. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask her to. Andrew drove separately. 2 weeks later, he signed a lease on a smaller apartment about 15 minutes away. Not fancy. 2 bedrooms, older cabinets, a parking space close to the dumpster. He called me after he got the keys. "I can cover it." "Good. I mean without help." "I know what you meant." There was a pause. Then Andrew said, "Lauren and I are separating." I looked down at the notebook in front of me. "You filed?" "We're talking to lawyers. Nothing's final." "Good. What's good about that?" "That nothing's final until it's final." He laughed once. No humor in it. "Do you think we can fix us?" I knew which us he meant. Not the marriage, Him and me. I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the notebook. Not today, Andrew breathed out. Fair. Caroline kept the original documents. Every relevant email, every bank statement, every report, everything that might still matter while the civil issues played out. Months earlier, I might have wanted copies of all of it on my kitchen table, proof that I had not imagined anything. I no longer needed to see the pile every morning. So when Caroline said I could destroy one duplicate working copy, I fed it into the shredder in my home office. The machine pulled the pages down with a dry, grinding sound. Not the originals, just copies. I watched the strips fall into the bin. Then I went back to the kitchen. Tomorrow's appointment was at 10:30. I wrote it on the paper calendar, checked my phone. Same time, same date. Then I checked both once more. Not because Lauren had taught me to doubt myself, because careful was never the same thing as incapable. The refrigerator hummed. The house was quiet, and for the first time in a long while, nobody else was holding the pen. What would you do if the people you supported began using that support as proof that you were weak? Michael's story leaves you with a lesson that is practical before it is emotional. Helping your family does not mean surrendering control of your finances, your documents, or your decisions. You can love your children and still require receipts. You can help with rent and still ask where the money went. You can give someone access to an account and later decide that access needs to change. Trust is valuable, but trust without accountability can become an opportunity for someone else to make decisions in your name. There is another lesson here that matters just as much. A mistake is not proof that you are incapable. You can forget an appointment. You can pay a bill twice. You can struggle after losing someone you loved. Those moments deserve attention, but they should not automatically give another person the right to rewrite your identity. If someone repeatedly points to your smallest mistakes while discouraging you from checking records, asking questions, or getting an independent opinion, pay attention to that pattern. Michael eventually protected himself because he stopped arguing about intentions and started preserving facts. That is something you can use in your own life. Keep important financial statements. Read documents before signing them. Review accounts you share with relatives. Save significant emails and messages. If someone makes a serious claim about your health, finances, property, or legal capacity, get qualified independent advice instead of relying only on the person who benefits from your agreement. And notice what Michael did not do. He did not change locks in the middle of the night. He did not invent evidence. He did not destroy his son to punish his daughter-in-law. He allowed the trustee, attorneys, records, and proper procedures to do their jobs. That distinction matters. Protecting yourself is not the same as taking revenge without limits. The most satisfying consequence is often the one created by a person's own documented choices. Andrew's role carries a harder lesson. Silence can become participation. If you know something is wrong but keep signing papers because confrontation feels uncomfortable, you are still making a choice. I was trying to keep the family together. Cannot erase the damage caused by helping a lie survive. Sometimes, preserving a relationship at any cost only increases the price everyone will eventually pay. Lauren's downfall also began long before she had to leave the townhouse. It began when she decided that the outcome she wanted justified manipulating the facts. Once you start manufacturing evidence, hiding financial decisions, or asking other people to sign false statements, every new lie has to protect the previous one. Eventually, the record becomes stronger than the story. So ask yourself this. If someone in your family treated your generosity as an entitlement, how long would you keep paying before you drew a boundary? If your own child helped a spouse deceive you, could you separate love for your child from accountability for what they did? And if you were Michael, sitting at that kitchen table with one signature capable of making the immediate problem disappear, would you sign to protect the family, or would you refuse? Because protecting a family with another lie only postpones the damage. Sometimes the strongest boundary you can set is remarkably simple. You stop signing, you stop covering, and you let the truth remain on the page.